Welcome to the Verdin Verdict Sports Show, where we bring you sports talk on the go. I'm your host, Jacob Verdin. Today, we're going to give you a little bit of information. LSU football has a recruiting visit this weekend, of course. NFL draft update. LSU has plenty of draft prospects about to participate in the pro day. Spring practice is kicking off. We went check out the practice. We went get some footage. We're going to talk about our watch list, what we're looking for. And we're also going to preview March Madness. We're going to talk about the women's basketball team, the SEC tournament, the NCAA tournament, and even Reggie Bush's Heisman discussion. So stick around. But let's start this off. Recruiting visit this weekend. LSU's 2025 football recruiting class is insane. If you look at their rankings, On3 has them, the number one recruiting class. 24/7 has them, the number 3 recruiting class. But either way, 3 5-stars, 6 4-stars. They're off to a hot start. You get Harlan Berry, you get DeCorian Moore, you get Bryce Underwood. On this recruiting visit, it'll be headlined by Bryce Underwood coming back to Baton Rouge. Recently, you saw Coach Brian Kelly and company go up to Michigan and, touch base with him and kind of see how things were going over there. But this weekend, you're going to see him come to us in the boot as well as Caleb Cunningham, number 2 wide receiver in 2025, and Khalid Lockett, number 3 wide receiver in 2025. So LSU is on the trail to get the number 1, the number 2, and the number 3 wide receivers of the 2025 class. That would be huge. If you give Cortez Hankton those weapons, those pieces, not only does LSU turn back into wide receiver U, not only does LSU sit on top of college football as one of the most productive offenses year in and year out, but I think that the quarterback production will continue to improve. Your running game is going to open up. I think that might be the area that keeps LSU at the top of college football. That reproduction spot at wide receiver, the skill players, the explosive players. You keep developing guys like Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr. You turn Chris Hilton into that. You turn Aaron Anderson into that. You turn even Kyron Lacey into that. You turn these younger guys into that. You're going to have fireworks in Tiger Stadium for a long time. I think that the foundation Coach Kelly is laying on, getting all these big recruits in, keeping a lot of the talented Louisiana players home. As you saw, the 2024 class, 90% of the top 10 stayed home. He retained 9 of the top 10 Louisiana-based recruits. So I think that they're rebuilding in a sense where everything they're losing from the draft is going to wind up coming back tenfold. Like our starters this year are going to, in the wide receiver room, going to be Chris Hilton, Kyron Lacey, Aaron Anderson. You're going to see some other things dabble in. But this next class, Caleb, Khalid, DeCorian, I think that these guys could be the future. When you're getting the number 1, the number 2, and the number 3 wide receivers onto your campus and you're getting them kind of integrated in your recruiting community, I think that is going to help open eyes up in the entirety of the class. Whether you're the number 8 wide receiver, or whether you're, a few diamonds in the rough here and there, I think that this is going to help, put LSU on the map as the recruiting powerhouse in college football. Nick Saban's gone. Jim Harbaugh's gone. Yeah, you got Georgia still, but LSU and Brian Kelly can push to the top and become the destination for college football recruits. Switching gears, we talked about the NFL draft. Yeah, people are leaving. Some very, very, very talented people. LSU legends. People that hold records that, might never be broken. NFL draft update. The trio of first-rounders for the Tigers in this year's draft. The last time that happened was so long ago. Just kidding. 2020. Everybody knew that was coming. 2019 LSU Tigers put on a clinic, went undefeated. I don't know if you know that. Joe Burrow wound up getting picked first for the Cincinnati Bengals. Clavon Chassel wound up getting picked 20. The Jags. And, of course, Justin Jefferson, gritty man, pick number 22 to the Vikings. I'd say that draft class, it fared out decent. Looking at this year's draft class, though, Brian Thomas Jr., Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors. Let's start off with my man BTJ. His stock is soaring with that 40-yard dash. 4.34? I mean, you got Jaden Daniels poking fun at the guys saying, I might run a little bit faster than Brian. I might run a little bit faster than Malik. But, ooh, Brian might have made that argument a lot tougher for Jaden Daniels. 4.34 40-yard dash. I think this solidifies what Mel Kiper Jr. said. He said he's the 11th best prospect in this draft, nearing him in the top 10 in prospects. I second that statement. I think that Brian Thomas Jr. could potentially be better than the 11th best prospect. That would put him at about wide receiver 5. You got Marvin Harrison Jr., you got Malik Neighbors. think it might be a toss-up if you take Rome Odunze over him. I think that he could potentially be making his argument as wide receiver 3 of the draft class. And if that's the case, shout out to Cortez Hankton, shout out to Brian Kelly, shout out to LSU. 2 of the top 3 wide receivers drafted would be to LSU if that would be the case. Caleb, Khalid, the Corian, I know y'all watching. This is wide receiver U. This is the spot to be in. LSU is almost not only just wide receiver U, but developmental U. I mean, we need to get back to DBU here soon. We're gonna tap into that. I think that they're gonna, with Corey Raymond, defensive changes. I think LSU is turning in the right direction to that. But Brian Thomas Jr., he's projected to go, I would say anywhere from around like pick 14-ish, and that's a Saints pick. So let me not say that. I got Saints fans getting heart attacks all over the place. I don't think the Saints are going to grab him, but I think he's in that teen range, that mid-teen range. The minute I said that number, I instantly knew what I started. But I think it's anybody's ball game. Bengals, Ravens, somebody that needs a vertical pass threat. It's too much value to pass up at that spot. I think Brian Thomas Jr. is your guy, especially when Marvin and Malik go off the board. Speaking of Malik, though, what a funny reaction to the question of Titans or Falcons being his potential draft spot. He hit him with the, ooh, and everybody kind of, I don't know if it was overblown. He probably didn't mean it to be like that. It just was probably like off the cuff reaction, but it was super, super funny. Malik's projected to go to either the New York Giants or the Los Angeles Chargers. I think he's your wide receiver 2, more than likely as a lock. They're going to grab Marvin ahead of them, of course. You know how that's going. Same thing with the Biletnikoff Award. It kind of is going to Marvin with the hype and the name and just like all of the body of work throughout his entirety of his college career. But, I mean, if you look at this past season, it's pretty hard to say that he was better than Malik Nabers. It's pretty hard to ignore Malik Nabers and the stats that he was able to do, his game, his skill, the matchup nightmare that it is. I think, plus, look at LSU's track record with the wide receiver talent that they've been able to produce, I think that this is potentially your best wide receiver in this draft class. I think Malik Nabers is going to wind up having one of the better careers, especially when you're comparing him to guys like Marvin or Rome. I think that past couple of seasons in college football, they've been pretty competitive. I think last year kind of pushed Malik over the edge in terms of rankings, in terms of comparisons on those 2 athletes. I think he set himself apart. He set himself in a new bracket, so to speak, of wide receivers in college football. So it'll be interesting to see if Malik carries that chip on his shoulder. It was like, all right, y'all don't want to give me the Biletnikoff Award. Y'all don't want to give me my flowers. I'm going to go ahead and earn them. I'm going to go get them in the league. I'm going to go get them my rookie year. So that'll be very interesting to watch. I'm going to enjoy that transition, and I think that, out of any of these draft picks, while they're all talented, I think Malik could be one of the guys that has the highest ceiling and could wind up having the best career. Moving on, Jaden Daniels, come on. He's speaking for himself. Top 3 pick, barring any insane trade. Caleb Williams is going to go 1. Bears might not be the one picking. It could be somebody else, or it could be a trade. Who knows? The Commanders, now you see that they were doing some homework on them. They're calling around. They're trying to figure out some things. That would be a decent spot, the Commanders. You hear them potentially getting Zach Ertz. You see that they got Curtis Samuel. They got Scary Terry. If they can somehow, pattern up that run game, that's a decent spot for Jaden Daniels off the rip his rookie year. The Commanders, in comparison to the Patriots or the Bears, I think that they have, some decent weapons for a young quarterback to be able to develop with some surefire targets, gain some chemistry and some trust at that level. But, the third pick being the Patriots, I think that we could potentially see him fall here just because sometimes the safe pick clouds the mind of these general managers, these owners, these people making the decisions on who's going to get drafted come draft day in late April. The GMs, they don't want to take the shot. They don't want to be like, oh, well, this is the best guy. Let me go ahead and grab him. Let me go ahead and make the shot, because if it doesn't pan out and they had another name that was scouted like a Drake May, they could be on the hot seat. They could lose their job. So if they take the Drake May, they take the proven prospect that they've been watching and they've been studying, and it doesn't work out, they're kind of like, it's a safe shot, and the risk reward, I guess, is all paid attention to in sports, and especially in the front office. I feel like if an owner sees a GM making a risky pick and it doesn't work out, They might not be too happy. But I think Jaden Daniels is that risk that you have to take. I don't think that you're going to be in a situation where your owner is pissed that you took Jaden Daniels over at Drake May. I mean, he won the Heisman. He's got the mobility. It looks like he's the quarterback for this generation and this era of NFL football. The game is 100% going towards Jaden Daniels' style. I mean, look at Lamar Jackson, league MVP, one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and even Patrick Mahomes, mobile as can be, gives the defense that second thought. You can't really get comfortable in coverage. You always got to wonder. You always got to spy. You always got to keep an eye on the quarterback position. And I think that Jaden Daniels, when you're comparing him to a guy like Drake May, or honestly, even Caleb Williams, I think that what he has the big arm, he's got the IQ, he's got the mobility, he's got the pocket presence. I think that he also showed that he's able to gel and change schemes and grow on the fly. I think that Jaden Daniels experienced a lot of criticism in his change and his transfer to LSU. Not only last year, but the year before, his first year coming over. People are wondering why he's playing. People are wondering if he was a correct starter. People are confused on his play style. Why is he not throwing it enough? This, that, the other, and the third. I think he went through a lot of adversity, and it wound up helping him out, and it wound up growing him. The SEC ball is different. It's a little bit different than playing at UNC. It's a little bit different than playing at Oklahoma/USC. I think that Jaden Daniels, he showed he had the chops. He's played tough competitors, and he's at that level. He's got that experience. He's got that big game confidence. I think he's your guy. Let's move on to the spring practice watch list. Make sure to check out our spring practice football reports. I know it's rough. It's early in the morning on Thursdays and Tuesdays, but come on. LSU's getting back into the spring practice grind. We're going to be talking to coaches, whether it be offensive coordinator Joe Salone, head coach Brian Kelly, new defensive coordinator Blake Baker. We'll get him soon later on in the month. But Tuesdays and Thursdays, go check out our YouTube channel. See if we got a practice report up. Some days we're going to have media availability, and every day that we do, we're going to hurry back, show you all the footage, everything we saw, everything we heard, everything we learned, give you our takes on it, and just, talk some LSU football here in the spring. So stay on the lookout for that. Hit the subscribe button. But what we're going to be looking for, number one, first and foremost, wide receiver room checkup. I want to feel the pulse on that room. We were just talking about it, how important that is, how that could be the mainstay in LSU's offense for years to come, as it has been. I mean, I think that we talked about the starters. We've already made it. It's hard for it not to be Kyron Lacy, Chris Hilton, and Aaron Anderson. That's your three most talented players, you would think. I think Kyron Lacy, though, in that wide receiver one role, it'll be very, very, very interesting to see how he handles it. There's no Malik in the room. There's no Kayshawn in the room. This is your room, Kyron. You're the veteran. You're the guy. This is your year. And I'm not saying that to put any pressure on him. I'm just saying that because I'm expecting big things, and I think that this is his year to take, the torch, so to speak, from Malik Neighbors or from Brian Thomas and carry it and develop under Cortez Hankton and, show that he's NFL ready and just live up to that potential that everybody knows he has. Kyron Lacy is a great athlete, had a great career at UL Lafayette, and honestly, he's had a pretty good career here at LSU. And I think that it's just getting started, just seeing the tip of the iceberg. He'll be very, very interesting to watch. But somebody else that I think people should be paying attention to is Chris Hilton Jr. Chris Hilton Jr. is a huge, huge, huge threat in that wide receiver room. Saw him in the bowl game. You saw him get active. You saw him get vertical. You saw him make some tough catches. But something that I don't know if people saw is his speed. The dude runs 21-plus miles per hour. He could be our fastest wide receiver. He could be that threat. He could be the slot running the slant across the field, making defenders miss time and time and time after again. I think that that's going to be the X factor this year, but there is another young man that I think could take that title, the X factor title. Now, in the wide receiver room, Chris Hilton will hold that. But on the overall offense, I think the X factor could be Caleb Jackson. I think if Caleb Jackson gets that running back one spot that I think he deserves, that I think he potentially earns through spring camp and through fall camp, then we're going to have a monster on our hands. I think Caleb Jackson is your next Leonard Fournette. He's 6 foot. He's 200-plus pounds. He can run the sub-11-second 100-meter. He can run people over. He can pin them in the ground. He can get through. He can burst down the side. He can run over the edge. I think that Caleb Jackson is probably going to be one of the most talented running backs to leave LSU. And yeah, that's saying a lot. But I think that between, guys like Kevin Falk, Leonard Fournette, hell, I'll even mention Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Shout out. I think he's a little bit of both, a little bit of all three of them, excuse me. I think he's a mixer. I think that he's got that big frame. He's got the speed. He's got the quick, adjustments. He can catch balls out of the backfield. He'll be the surefire target. And if him and Garrett Nussmeier can get on the same page, I think that that'll be like the Band-Aid on what was lost in the NFL draft class. When you lose Jaden Daniels, when you lose Malik Neighbors, when you lose Brian Thomas, you lose a lot of production, you lose a lot of plays, you lose a lot of primary receivers, primary targets, you lose a lot of options. But I think when you find out what you have in guys like Chris Hilton, Kyron Lacy, as we're expecting, and Caleb Jackson, I think that that's how you can kind of translate last year to this year and make it work. I think that, the new defense will be very exciting to see. Harold Perkins Jr. going to be back inside. We talked about that a little bit. If you missed it, I'll pin it up here. I think that that'll be exciting. Harold Perkins has the potential to be the best player on LSU's defense. And how do you get to be the best player on LSU's defense? Well, you get to do a little bit of everything. You got to try to play coverage. You got to try to read your keys. You can get to the quarterback and use your strong suit that everybody wants to see. But when we're talking about development, we're talking about getting guys ready. We're talking about having them reach their potential. I think if Blake Baker says, hey, we should put this young man, Harold Perkins, inside, I'm going to go ahead and trust him. What I'm going to look for, though, who's our starting corners? How does that defensive line look? Did Bo Davis get him physical yet? Who are they putting there? For the cornerbacks, is it going to be some experienced guys? Are we still going to have a little bit of inexperience? What did the portal additions, how did they gel into the team this year? Because the DBs last year, it was rough. I mean, we didn't play with most of them throughout the year. Yeah, you had Zy Alexander and Denver Harris at times, but guys like Deuce Chestnut and unfortunately an injured J.K. Johnson did not see the field much. So we're going to pay attention to that. I want to see everything about the defense. The minute Blake Baker is on the field, all eyes will be on him. I will assure you that. Finally, last but not least, what we're going to watch for, Nussmeier QB1 era. Any noticeable offensive changes? You heard, obviously, they're going to, tailor the offense to Nuss, and they're going to try to get the weapons that he wants and that fit his game in on the field. What does that look like? What did they change? Is everybody on the same page? How are the reactions to this? I think that, it'd be pretty interesting to see this new era. Everybody always, held Jaden Daniels to a high standard after seeing what Joe Burrow put out, so I can only imagine what Nussmeier is going to go through for a little bit. He'll have some big cleats to fill, whether it be Jaden Daniels, whether it be Joe Burrow. People are going to expect instant success, and I think that, they should dial it back a little bit. He's a younger guy, very capable, great arm, very present, great dude. I love Nuss. I'll speak and sing his praises all season long, but I think that, having some patience here and letting him take over the steering wheel gracefully will be very important. If you don't see instant success week one, I wouldn't shout, I wouldn't get freaked out, and I wouldn't call for the job, because just think about the last quarterback that happened to. Wound up winning a Heisman. So you never know. I think that everybody definitely deserves their shot, and it'll be very interesting. Like I said, very capable. Going to be a great quarterback, more than likely. I don't think we'll have any issues at all. Very excited to see the Nussmeier era start. But, yeah, that's a spring football watch list, I'd say. Those are going to be the 4 things that we'll be looking for. So, once again, hit that subscribe button. Hit the follow button. We'll be doing practice reports every single practice we get to go to. We'll, give you a heads up before we release them, but it'll be those early morning uploads. So hit the notification bell so you do not miss that. Let's talk about the Reggie Bush Heisman appeal real quick. Of course, Reggie Bush won the Heisman in 2005, had to surrender it in 2010. The reason why was because USC was given penalties as an institution because of a larger investigation that I will have to say Bush was not individually specifically targeted in. The sanction was placed on USC, and the way the NCAA is explaining it is if it's reversed, every single sanction on that investigation would have to be reversed because it was not just Reggie. It was Reggie and this and this and this and what have you. So if Reggie's got reversed, every single one would have to. And the issues, it's gaining support. You see Johnny Manziel say something about it. You see Rick Pitino say something about it. And honestly, in the world of NIL today, you see players making millions of dollars. Great. And I think they deserve it. I think, honestly, some players deserve more. They are the reasons why college sports, is what it is. And for a long time, they weren't able to get their cut. So I'm very excited to see them get it. And I think Reggie Bush needs to be reinstated as a Heisman just because, one, it's rough to see he's one of the only people that gets scapegoated like that. Two, it's confusing because the NCAA picks and chooses all kind of things. I mean, let's look at LSU's little microcosm in this entire thing. Recruiting violations for LSU men's basketball, of course, a couple years ago. Everybody remembers that. They lose Will Wade. That same year, Kansas wins a national championship under Coach Bill Self with 5 Level 1 NCAA violations, while LSU and Will Wade had 2. So I think that the NCAA picks and chooses a lot of things. This is no different. It's pretty weird. Feel like the Reggie Bush thing could get reversed, and I think a lot of people are going to push for it. I wouldn't be surprised to see the NCAA change their tune up, once they see the support behind it and once they see the reactions. What are your comments on this? What do you think? Do you think Reggie Bush's Heisman should be reinstated? Do you think the old saint, the old Super Bowl champ should get El Heisman back? Comment below. Let me know what you think. I think so. I think he's deserving of it. I love Reggie, big Reggie Bush guy. Sad to see, his legacy get a little bit of tarnishing on it, but he's still my Heisman. So let's move on to LSU women's basketball. LSU women's basketball has been putting on a show recently. Last year they won the national championship. Everybody remembers that, of course. They would have liked to get the SEC tournament, the SEC regular season championship, but wasn't able to happen. I think Kim Mulkey and company, they are pretty focused heading into this tournament. On Friday, they're going to start play. It might be against Arkansas, might be against Auburn. They're going to have to see how things shape up. But this looks like a crash course to a potential South Carolina versus LSU rematch once again. And there could be a couple things done through this tournament that Kim Mulkey has not done at LSU. Not only win an SEC championship, but beat South Carolina. I think that would be very exciting. Let's talk a little bit about the awards that LSU women's basketball has racked up this season. Of course, Angel Reese, SEC Player of the Year. Shout out to her. She had a great season. Made SEC first team as well. Joining her on SEC first team will be Anissa Morrow. Michaela Williams, SEC Freshman of the Year. Also on the all-freshman team. She's joined by Aaliyah Del Rosario, also on the freshman team. And then you got Flau'jae Johnson, SEC second team. So I think, LSU star-studded team, this is no surprise. Had a lot of potential going into this year, with the number 1 recruit, Michaela Williams, with the number 1 transfer, Anissa Morrow, and then you had Haley Van Lith get added to the mix. There's been a little bit of question on whether or not she's been integrated into the team as successful as possible, but the other day she had a huge game where she scored 25-plus points, almost had a season high. I think that, if you can find a way to have this team hit their stride at the perfect time, that's going to be the method to the madness. And I know that that's like the most broad way to put March Madness. Oh, you just got to hit your stride at the perfect time. But that's really all there is to it. You don't want LSU to go undefeated all season. You don't want them to, put on a strong showing in the SEC tournament and then go to the NCAA tournament and collapse in round 1 and get upset by a 16 seed or what have you. That happens. March Madness is known for that. So I think the key is going to be have everybody slowly reach their peak at the perfect time, build up. And if Haley Van Lith has to start playing better toward the end of the year, then so be it. She kind of had a rough season. She kind of had a couple rough patches, but I think that this month is the month where everybody's lights turn on. When you're a competitor, when you're a gamer, when you're a player, that March Madness is when the lights shine the brightest, and that brings the most out of some people. So I think Haley Van Lith can use that to her advantage, create a similar performance to how she did at Louisville last season, and I think some fireworks could fly. Tigers are the number 2 seed for 3 years in a row in this SEC tournament. I think that's a little interesting. You got 3 years with Kim Mulkey. You're the number 2 seed for 3 years. You're a top 3 seed in the tournament for 3 years, or potentially. You could potentially host the NCAA tournament for 3 years, and in the first 2 years, you get a national championship. So I think this whole era, this whole turnaround by Coach Mulkey has been amazing to witness. It's been really cool to watch. It's been really cool to watch her build a super team or this dynasty that has so much attention. I mean, if you look at the comparison in attendance from women's versus men's basketball, it's night and day difference. You got some games with the men's team where you got maybe 500 people in the whole building at the beginning of the year. Now you got a couple thousand, but the women's team selling out the arena. The traffic on the way home is almost comparable to like a little mini football game. If LSU was playing like a non-conference opponent, it feels the same. Going home takes you about 15, 20 minutes to get back on the interstate. It gets backed up. But NCAA tournament, number 8 in the AP poll, Tigers are currently in the top 10. I think that, with the selection show on March 17th, you got a lot of things to look for. You want to see how LSU finishes the SEC tournament, of course. You want to see, obviously, what people do around them. You want to see, what the Iowas of the world do, how South Carolina handles some things, even teams like UConn, but even Colorado too. I think that's a pretty important one to take into account. You want to know what everybody in the rankings are doing. Lastly, you want to take the health and the injuries into account of each team. Hopefully, through this next couple of weeks in conference tournament play, nothing happens, nothing goes down, nothing changes. But all of that is going to be taken into account when you're looking at these teams going into March Madness and, potentially judging them and putting them up against the best of the best. When you have 64 spots, you want to make sure that you're putting everybody in the right spots to make sure that the matchups are the best that they can be, not only for the teams, not only for the competition, but for the overall experience of the bracket. Speaking about the bracket, do I think LSU can make a run at the national championship? Now, I'd be a fool to say no. If you saw them last season, you'd be crazy to think that Kim Mulkey and company cannot put, magic on the floor again. I think that they're going to be able to, like we said earlier, kind of hit their stride. They're going to realize, or at least some players on the team are going to realize the situations that they're in a little bit sooner in games. They're not going to fall behind as quick. You've been here before. You're no longer the hunter. You're now the hunted. You're at the top of college basketball. Everybody that you play more than likely in this tournament, as they have all season, will play up to you. This is their biggest game. This is potentially the game that's sold out, has the most fans, has the most eyes on it. This is everything to them. So you got to take that into account as well. But I think that LSU is on the verge of putting together a dynasty here. If you have a strong showing in the Final Four, or if you have a strong showing in the SEC tournament, that's how you keep this program legitimate. If LSU women's basketball goes and has a horrible SEC tournament showing, gets bounced in the first or second round of the tournament, you're going to have some question marks. Will that affect the trajectory of the program? Who knows? But you're going to have skeptics. You're going to have critics. You're going to have people questioning whether or not last year was a fluke. That's just how things go. If LSU performs well in the SEC tournament, if they perform well in the NCAA tournament, then it's going to be a completely flip of the narrative. You're going to have people wondering, is this the new dynasty? Is this the new South Carolina? Is this going to be the team? Hell, is this the new Baylor? Is this going to be Kim Mulkey's second reign on top of college women's basketball? Is she going to go crazy on the SEC and continuously rack up national championship after national championship after national championship? I think it's possible. Going back-to-back would be insane. Unfortunately, you might see Haley Van Lith and Angel Reese leave if that were to be the case, if they win a national championship, just because, it don't get better than that. You're kind of... I'm wondering especially what Angel Reese is going to do, because you see Caitlin Clark locked for the number 1 pick. You see the draft stock having her kind of toward the middle of the top 5-ish, maybe bottom of the top 10. I would maybe return and kind of develop your body of work and make a run, one more national championship run next year. I think that the ending of this season is going to be very contingent on her decision. She's going to want to end. I'm not going to say she's going to want to end on a high note, but if you win a national championship 2 years in a row, if you go back to back, that's picture perfect ending. You can't write. You can't think, draw, brainstorm. You can't create something as perfect as that. That's a movie ending right there. I think, that'd be the writing on the wall. Everybody would see, all right, this is her moment, this is her step, this is her time. Would that propel her to the top 3 of the WNBA draft? I think it could be enough. But I think if you're Angel Reese, if you're not going to be ranked 1, 2, or 3 in that mock draft, I think, you stay back. You stay another year, you develop that body of work. Basketball, though, men's basketball, some rough things are going on. Jalen Cook suspended from the team per Coach Matt McMahon. Failure to meet standards placed by team. That's going to be the reasoning. Now, look, Jalen Cook is a junior. He's got some eligibility left. My question is, does he stay? He's a great talent, averages 16 points per game, had a season-high 28 points versus Vanderbilt. This is going to be something that you keep into consideration if you're Matt McMahon. How do you get somebody back that ended the year suspended, ended the year on the bench, didn't get to go and perform in the final games of their junior season? He has a senior year. He might have another year of eligibility afterwards because of, COVID year, redshirt, what have you. But does this ruin the Jalen Cook and LSU relationship? Does he come back? Does this make it better? Coach Matt McMahon could be giving him some tough love, could be developing a relationship, could be holding him accountable, similarly to what you see, him and John Moran have at Murray State. I think this could be a good little duo. He's a talented guard, and I think Coach Matt McMahon is building a pretty gritty and competitive LSU team with what he was inherited. They had a lot of recruiting restrictions. They had a lot of issues at LSU that he took on, and he faced them head on. He had a lot of backlash at first. He had a lot of losses. He had a lot of experiences that, didn't go his way, but he learned from them, and I think that he's putting together a hell of a product on the court. So shout out to Matt McMahon. Shout out LSU men's basketball. It's been pretty cool to watch them grow. But, yeah, that's been the show. Tell me what you think. Comment any of your takes. And make sure to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell before you leave so you don't miss another upload. We're going to try to go for about 2 uploads a week. We're definitely going to hit you with an upload every single week. We're going to get back into that consistent grind, that consistent swing of things. So be on the lookout for that. Also, like I said, spring practice coverage will be there. We'll be back in the swing of things. We'll be giving you the inside look. We'll be giving you all the sound bites, all the highlights, everything that we can. Thanks for watching. This has been the Verdin Verdict. Y'all have a good one.